Today we are going to paint a beautiful tangerine. Here we are, we've got the still life. We're gonna make this nice painting using the limited palette of colors. I am an artist, Yaroslav Ternovskyi. Let's have this wonderful art trip. Alright guys, now we've got a palette of necessary colors and a canvas which is already covered with some hue, and this covering is not else but the old painting which I wiped out, and this beautiful coloring remained, kind of imprimatur, and on this imprimatur we're gonna paint our wonderful still life of tangerine. And here is the tangerine you see in the left bottom corner, and I decided to paint it in a backlight because the backlight reveals this beautiful transparency of the tangerine, and we'll try to capture it in our canvas. And also, if you see the small parts of the tangerine laying here, they're also transparent and look nicely in this backlight. So the backlight is important, and the gray drapery is used intentionally because the gray color enhance the orange beautiness of the tangerine. Well, as for the palette, we've got here a vermilion, we've got here scarlet, a madder lake, and cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, burnt umber, ultramarine, and titanium white. First of all, we need to provide a composition to our canvas. So I'll start drawing with, alright, let's say scarlet. I'll get it a little on the white brush here and start my composition. Of course, tangerine is relatively a small fruit, but I want to paint it big to make the painting even more interesting. But now I'm paying attention not to place the tangerine itself in the center of the canvas. I put it a little bit closer to the left side of the canvas and a bit closer to the upper side, not in the center as you see, because I also got the piece of peel visible here, so we're gonna show it as well. You see those beautiful peels, they maintain the shape of the tangerine. Because of the white coloring, it helps to perceive the darker side of the tangerine, as well as the darker shadows on the left peels. We see they help to perceive the lighted area of the tangerine. So that's our goal, to paint the fruit as clearly as we can. And here is the peel. Here it is, and also two pieces of tangerine is laying on the table. By the way, in different positions when you're preparing your still life or anything you're gonna paint or draw. It's better to put them in the place or in the position which makes them look best. And look, we've got the tiny piece of peel laying on the table on the left, and I don't have space here, and also I don't want to sacrifice the main object to this tiny peel, but I find it necessary, and I just move it on my canvas just a little bit closer to the left, to the center of the painting. And that's then artistic trick, so you can visually move your objects if necessary. Of course, nobody can judge you for this trick. Yeah. Now the proportions, I feel like I need to make it bigger, this piece and this one as well. a little bigger because I mind proportions now and fix them, well, I'm ready to cover my canvas, my composition with different colors. And by the way, I'm using now the flat brisk brush, and it's very it takes the paint nicely because of natural hair here, and so use as large brush as you can for the first stages of your painting. Well, let's move on. I think I'm going to start from the tangerine. I'll try to paint it as vividly as I can. So I'm using cadmium yellow and plus a bit of vermilion. So I'm starting from the brightest color here, and it darkens as far as it goes down along the shape of tangerine here. It darkens because the light doesn't pierce the whole fruit, just the upper area of it. So here we are. And I can't emphasize a little bit the transparency, so screw it up, adjust it a little bit to produce more effect. Here it is. Then when we talk about the backlight, this area of the tangerine is well lit, and I can use a bit white here and mix it with cadmium yellow, and it produces kind of lemon hue. Here it is. Next, I'm going to cover this area, the inner area of peel, again using very light, but be careful not to use the pure light color. I mix it with yellow ochre maybe and cadmium yellow. So since it's very light, but it's not a totally pure white, you see. Here we've got this area. As you see, I just apply paint chaotically and don't mind the brush strokes, don't mind the direction of the brush strokes. It's just free brush work, very intense and very improvising. Well, and an inner area of the peel on the left side here is darker, and you see it emphasizes the light area of tangerine here. I use burnt umber plus vermilion. Here it is. Umber helps me to neutralize the vividness, the saturation of the color, and make it more neutral, which is also important for me. And again, a pure vermilion to cover the outer side of the peel, here and here. And maybe I will darken it with, again, burnt umber. So what I try to do now is to understand the color interactions on my paintings, and those interactions are of the utmost importance in every painting you create. So here we are. Next, I'm going to pay a bit of attention to the pieces here of tangerine, and I'm covering it with almost pure cadmium yellow plus a bit of vermilion to make it as vivid as I can, and a bit more vivid than the color of tangerine. Here we are. and the side of the laying piece here. Also again, we've got very strong light. Let it be like this. I don't try to get the very precise hue. I don't try to paint it accurately. All I need to do is to cover the whole area of the canvas with relatively nicely looking colors. Well, the next step can be the background. The background is gray. We can easily make it using burnt umber plus ultramarine, and can start darkening it around my main object. If I feel I need a bit colder area, I use more ultramarine. If I need warmer, I just apply a bit more of umber. Here it is. And I leave some areas of the canvas transparent, you see, so I don't try to cover it in a thick manner. You see that because of my rubbing the brush across the surface of the canvas, it leaves the area transparent, and it's still those pink and orange hues, colors, they still strike through the layer of umber plus ultramarine, and this effect produces the additional connection, additional interactions between all the colors in the painting. Of course, it doesn't look too much gray as we see it in reality, but in fact the artist doesn't paint the reality. The artist paints its impressions, emotions, the air, the idea, the philosophy of the surroundings, not the surroundings itself as a photo. For protocol documenting we don't need to paint it as accurately as possible, but of course the accurate drawing, the accurate coloring is necessary, but it's not the object, it's not the target of artistic work. So here we are. Now I'm working with you see the casted shadows. The casted shadows are of utmost importance in this painting because they emphasize the effect of backlight. Here we've got them. And as you see, because this canvas was primed with the color, let's say, some areas I can leave just as they are, and they are very, very similar to the lit areas of my drapery. Besides the fact that it's gray, because of warm source of light, it turns to be a little bit pinkish or orange. It has a bit of orange in its hue. So that's why some areas of my imprimatur can be left as they are for this time. Or maybe just I'll change them, but just a bit. Using light, soft and transparent brushwork like this. And well, just by coincidence, I've got a lighter area here and darker area here. That's what I exactly need because I've got the source of light. The light is coming from the left upper corner, and this area must be lighter than the right area because it's closer to the source of light. That's why I leave it a bit lighter, and I darken, you see, those areas on the right which I don't need too light. Here we are. Here we are. So the next step, that's the very first step of your artistic work. So you need to cover the canvas. I've got the relatively big canvas, 50 by 50 centimeters, and you need to cover it as fast as possible in order to continue with searching for more precise relationships of colors. Now I can work on it. So first I'll use a bit of ochre and improve the colors of the inner peel here. Step 1. Step 2, we also got the nice edge of the peels. They look a bit greenish, so I mix ultramarine plus cadmium, yellow plus a bit of white, and I will apply it to some areas here. We'll make it darker. I will emphasize the edge here and here, the edge of the peel. You see how it changes because it has different angle to the source of light, and of course here. Here we've got a very interesting hue in the shadow of the peel, so I'll try to show it using ochre and a bit of ultramarine, just a bit, not to make it too grayish, and here. So we've got a filling of let's say round shaped peel, which we just get off our tangerine. Well, let's continue with our tangerine. I'll use scarlet plus vermilion to emphasize maybe a bit of cadmium, to emphasize the juicy color of its body. I'll put just juiciest brush strokes and here as well. More yellowish color here. And the mixture of white makes my color less intense, as you see, and less saturated, and it gives the feeling of, I'll just try to get the correct, yes, here we are. So I just experimented, as you noticed, with different hues, and I decided that vermilion plus titanium white and a bit of cadmium yellow is the best suitable color here when I want to lit the surface which has a direct connection, direct interaction with the source of light, because these areas they show the transparency of our figure, of our object, and this area shows the light itself. So, well, we've got this part of tangerine in shadow, but the shadow is very intense, it's very colorful, as you see, because of transparency. And to emphasize this transparency even further, I will use a bit of ultramarine and madder lake to make a kind of cold hue. Here we are, a bit of purple, and this purple hues I can add as a border of the shadow and light. You see how it works? This border is very necessary. It shows distinguish the area of light and the area of shadow, but I need it a bit darker maybe. Here we are. So again, I experiment with light and color as long as I need until I get the right tone and the right the right color. Here we are. Here we are, yes. Now I'm happy with that. Well, let's work with our pieces of tangerine laying on the table. Maybe I will highlight them in the area closer to the source of light again here. Here we are. That's it. And again, to make it deeper, make deeper color here. You see how it changes. And again with the piece of tangerine here. Yes, now I'm pretty happy with the coloring. Some extra improvements. The background, as you see, I make it kind of pink glowing around my tangerine. I don't really see it in the nature, but I know that this tangerine irradiates, reflects a lot of light, and this effect of glowing will help to emphasize the radiation, the reflection of the powerful light. Again, the drapery might be a bit lighter in the area closer to the source of light, maybe lighter, colder. Experiment, you see, using ultramarine and titanium white to cover it with this misty grayish color. Here it is, just a bit darken here, and I'll darken the area here. So now we've got a situation. Well, I turn to work with the tangerine peel. I'll make it more difficult in color. So I will use a bit of ultramarine, just a tiny bit of ultramarine, maybe a madder lake, to change the color, but I'll try to keep it light again, because the lightness of the peel emphasizes the right side of the tangerine itself. Here we are. And again, to the right, the peel lightens, gets lighter and lighter. Yeah, I don't show each particular wrinkle here. Don't show the tiniest details. It's not time for them, but surely we'll show them a bit later. Here we are, the first. The second stage is almost done, and maybe I can just improve the surface of the table, of the clothing, add in some extra colors, but again, I do it transparently. I allow the imprimatur to work effectively. I just want to keep this surface more smooth. Here we are. But some areas I left untouched, maybe here. Why not? Well, the next step, and it will be the last, is working with details. Or maybe one more thing, I'll just add the deep shadows beneath the object. I'm using ultramarine plus burnt umber, mixing them together without any white colors, and just darken those areas. It will emphasize the reflections on the peel. You see, so the darker area I make here, the lighter area becomes here. That's a relativity in the painting. It's always there, the effect of relativity. And here's the high time for some details. I'm just going to put the camera just a bit different direction of light. And let's show some details which will make our painting beautiful. So now I'm going to change my brush. Going to use the flat and relatively white brush made of synthetic hair. And this synthetic hair will allow to produce the more precise strokes in my painting. Well, first we need to show those white things on the tangerine. And when you peel it, you see this white remnants of the peel, and we're gonna show them. I will start from the shadow area, and I'll use ultramarine plus Madder Lake to make it colder and darker, and I'll try them on my tangerine. And of course, here's the moment of truth, because you need to demonstrate your knowledge of linear perspective, your knowledge of building ellipses. Here we are. First I separate the tangerine into pieces visually and add this bluish and grayish things. Look, it looks very light on my painting since it's gray on the palette. It's again the relativity in the process of painting, and you must consider it when you do the art. I'll add a bit of yellow now here, make it greenish, and I need it here. When you do art, it's always about relativity. The color you see on the palette not always will be the exact color on the painting, because on the painting it starts being surrounded by different hues, by different tones, and it changes, sometimes drastically changes. Here we are. Here we are. So what I'm going to do next, to paint the same thing but in the lit area of the tangerine. Of course, I will prepare the different mixture of titanium white plus yellow, and it gives me the feeling of the well lit area. And I use the edge of the brush to make those very thin and uneven brush strokes. That's what we need to show its nature. We need a lot of thin and uneven brush strokes here. And as light as possible, of course, so use as much titanium white as you can. But remember that it's not a pure white color. It's always mixed with something, in this case with cadmium yellow. Oh well. Then I turn back to the darker part of the tangerine, and I'll improve some lines here, because the first lines, they were just a kind of sketch. And you see I start adding the colors here and there. Start showing the tangerine's nature. Somewhere I just touch it very gently. Do not press on my brush. And I feel like I need to stop and to show some details in color. Now here, like that. And also some well lit part of the tangerine here. This will help to show its juicy nature. When you peel it, it's the shape of tangerine is uneven. It has those sectors, those spheres. So now what I'm doing is just show its unevenness. And of course, the darker area here. And you see how it comes about. It wants to demonstrate its juiciness to the viewer. And I again apply more and more paint boldly, vividly. And all those lines which I paint now, they demonstrate my knowledge of linear perspective, so it might be difficult, might be struggling for the newcomers to make it smoothly, to show it smoothly, because you must understand how this line goes, which direction it goes. Something like that. Now I can emphasize a bit different parts of the tangerine. And again, to play with its white areas, you know, it has kind of web of this white remnants of the peel, kind of net. So I just, with very gentle brushwork, I'm showing it, and these white strokes, they are accumulating to the edges and become more episodical near to the central part of our tangerine. Here we are. And you can apply them as many as you can. You can add the white color as much as you can, as much as you want. But again, be careful not to over apply it. You need to stop somewhere. And this decision is not always easy, to understand where you need to stop. Even for the experienced artists, sometimes they find themselves overdone this or that. And again, I'm going to pay a bit more attention to the outer shape, to the contour of my tangerine, because it's not even, since we've got those sectors, those pieces, separate pieces. You look by these tiny curves, I can show that my tangerine, it's not a round shaped object, like, I don't know, like a bowling ball. It's not a bowling ball. Here we are. You see those unevenness is necessary again to emphasize our perception of real tangerine, of its real juiciness. Here we are. Here we are. Some tiny details to add. Okay, I was just a bit tired with this tangerine, and I'm going to the next part of the painting. Here I also going to add this white peel leftovers or remnants here, using titanium white plus cadmium yellow. You see, it helps to show, to emphasize the light of the and also it emphasizes the effect of backlight. A bit colder brush strokes here is very helpful and useful. I use the ultramarine, Madder Lake, but I don't push the paint into this piece. I let them work lane on the surface, and it makes again the effect of transparency. Again, very strong effect. Again, I need colder things here and here. Right. Again, let's work with the left hues over there. More pink. I want more pink. Again, it's a theory of relativity in art. Here I want some extra light, extra blue, extra yellow and extra pink here to emphasize its lightness. I don't know why, but I like this strong pink hue left to my piece, so I'm going to leave it here. Maybe I'll add a bit of orange and here, and again cold and ultramarine net of peel leftovers here. Good, good. Let's work a bit with the outer color of the peel. Let's make more orange using vermilion plus cadmium yellow here in very strong combination, very strong mixture, pure and intense, contrasting. Also we'll add it here, the bold brush strokes. Sometimes we need very bold brush strokes. The very interesting thing is the place where it connects to the tree. Here we are. It helps us to emphasize the color and the contrast. Again, somewhere we need the light yellow hues here and here, and a bit here. Again, just a tiny portion this side of the peel. And we're gonna add some bold brush strokes to the tangerine peel, to the inner side of it, to show its texture, to show its unevenness. Here we are, but we don't put too much attention to its texture because we don't need to drag the viewer's attention to it. It's like a helping area which emphasizes the darker side of our tangerine, but in reality it's not necessary. You see, I even showed it partially because here we've got this peel left somewhere behind the painting, since it's unnecessary. But as a tone, as a white background to our tangerine is very important. So the texture is also can be shown. Those crackings here, it's very picturesque. Here we are. Well, don't forget about the shadows. We also have to improve them. The shadows are colder than the light, and again it makes the light even stronger and the painting more colorful, so picturesque. They always call it picturesque painting. So I even add some purple hues here because, well, it's necessary to emphasize the warm colors of the object, and I don't really see too much purple in my composition. But I can play, as we agreed at the beginning of the class, we can play with the color, we can play with the composition to move the objects a bit if it's necessary, if it requires, to make the painting more beautiful. So that's what I do. Look how those purple and violet shadows, how they emphasize the lighter areas of the painting. And of course the darkest shadows which lay beneath the objects, we need to emphasize them a bit using the darkest color you have, but don't use black too much. Sometimes you can, but I prefer using burnt umber plus ultramarine here. It makes quite strong shadow, because using dark you can just make holes, dark holes in your canvas with nothing else. You need to keep the atmospheric effect. When I use the darkest tones here, I still add a bit of scarlet, as you see, because we've got an orange object which is transparent, so the shadows, even the darkest point of the shadows, is a bit reddish or has an orange in itself. So mind it and be careful with dark. And in the painting, it's necessary to have the darkest area, which is here, and we also got the lightest area, which is here, and it means that our painting turns to be professional. Yeah, good. Again, some extra improvements of our casted shadows. Don't like the color. I like the color, but I want to improve it. Maybe I can put here a bit of orange, you see, because of strong reflections. Because the shadows are always influenced by the objects around them. In this case, the orange pieces of our tangerine. Here we've got them. And these shadows, these colorful shadows, they produce the effect of atmosphere. So when you hear the term atmospheric painting, it's all about the reflections in shadows, how they're connected, what interactions, how do they interact. And when the artists get them right, it's very beautiful. The shadows, they are not only dark, they are not only gray, or they are not only black. They have different dozens of hues, but of course mind not to make them more interesting than your main objects. Some cases, some authors, they paint so powerful reflection, they paint so powerful shadows, and this trick helps to maintain the visual effects. Sometimes it's possible to pay a bit more attention to shadows and to paint them as nicely as the lights, and even nicer than the lights itself. It's possible if it's necessary, if it's your idea in the painting, but it's not always the same. So as you might notice, I just add in some tiny details to my painting now, and also I'm constantly go back and closer to my painting in order to see the areas for improvement, so I don't see it in one place. I'm in a constant move, to and fro. I just evaluate my painting. Some areas I just want to correct or to add anything to them. And since we've got here on our tangerine's body the border of the shadow, I need this border. I need to emphasize it with the darker colors as well. The darker and colder. It's very beautiful. This contrast of dark and light, of cold and warm, it's very beautiful. Here we are. You see how this contrast starts working. I'm very careful not to put inappropriate color, and not to put inappropriate brush stroke. I also need to keep the tangerine's form all the way through. And the knowledge of linear perspective, which we do not discuss this time, is working now. Here we are. Here we are. Some extra tiny details, for example, those separating lines, they might look beautifully. Here we are. Emphasized by some darkened tones of the inner part of the peel. Here we are. Very beautifully. Like that. And then here we need to generalize some sort of things, because we painted our painting with many borders, with many lines, let's say very visible lights, very contrasted lines. For example, those pills, they have as strong line as the pieces of tangerine lane in front of us, and we need to understand which object is more important than the other in our painting, and to separate them somehow. So I'll suggest a nice way of, let's say, picture generalization of the picture. Of making picture looking at the whole thing, but not the set. Of different objects. Just in a moment. So now I'm getting rid of some contrasted part if I don't need too much contrast. And again, here we are, we can show an uneven outline contour of our main object, which demonstrates its juiciness. We can emphasize it in a stronger manner. Here we are. As you see, I'm in a constant search. I don't have a recipe. I can't tell that there is the only one way to paint this tangerine and do it like that every time and you will succeed. No, there are many more ways how to do it, and the thing is, the artist's task is to experiment and to make a dash, be bold and generate your new idea, be an explorer. Yes, being an explorer, that's the best definition of the artist. Well, and what I do now, just look, I'm going to make some areas softer. I'm using the wiper, a towel to clean the brush from the exceeding paint, and then I put it here and just make softer some edges. It produces extra glow into my painting, and it makes some borders softer. Here, for example, here, because I don't need them too contrasted. Here we are. It's a very common artist trick. Look, very nice. And here we are. Here we are. So we can drag a viewer's attention to the most interesting part, for example, this area of the tangerines part. Here maybe soften some areas here. And here we don't need too strong contrasts here, this area. Look how it works. it gets nicer and nicer. Here we are. Kind of. Here we are. You can even feel the smell of the tangerine while you're painting. It's very necessary to feel the object you do, to try to taste it. To think of it. Yeah. So you see how I soften this outward contour of the tangerine, and it's helpful. We will soften the darker areas here as well. Soften them. Yeah. Alright guys, here we are. Here is our tangerine, painted beautifully, and we would take into consideration all the rules, all the steps which professional artists go through when it paints. Oh, it's too much. I hope this was helpful to you and for your further artist achievements. So guys, I hope you enjoyed our wonderful art class. If so, put the thumbs up, subscribe to our channels, because our forthcoming videos are as much interesting and useful for you. See you later. Bye.